Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, KRISTIAN, Janisch, and the host of the Schmoedown Rundown, Gilmore.
What's up, movie trivia Schmoedown fans? Welcome to the Schmoedown Rundown, the official episode for the movie trivia Schmoedown. My name is Brad Gilmore, but you might know me by another name. You might know me as The Boat. Hashtag best of all time. Hashtag Brad's opinions are true. And hashtag boat life. Hashtag I'm on a boat. And today, sorry if you hear planes in the background. There's an air show currently going on in Friendswood, Texas. But today we are having somewhat of a patchwork show between Frank Janisch and I. Frank Janisch is in Orlando. And I am not. And I had some obligations with ESPN that prevented us from our normal recording schedule. So anyway, here we are today, and we have a patchwork episode, like I said. So Frank Janisch did record some thoughts. I am recording my thoughts. We're going to kind of intersplice them together. I think that the biggest thing to discuss off top is, if you watch the matches this week, you obviously know who won both of them, and we're going to see William Beast Bibbiani and Ben Bateman competing for the ultimate Schmoedown singles tournament winner. But the issue is, with this year, initially we were supposed to have this match at the Orlando Live event, which is going down Saturday, probably when most of you are seeing this, and it's not going to happen anymore. If you missed the news bulletin, it looks like because of Ben Bateman's inability to travel due to a recent back surgery, that match has been postponed to the Spectacular. So that is when the majority of us are going to get to see that, or all of us are going to get to see that match. That is going to be at the Spectacular, which is December the 7th live. Go to the Schmoedownlive.com to get tickets for that if you haven't already. I will be there. Frank will be there. Maybe Chris will be there. We're going to try to all make it out for that big, big show. It's the WrestleMania of the movie trivia Schmoedown. Spectacular 4 goes down December the 7th. And we're not going to see this match this weekend with Bibbiani and Ben Bateman. What we are going to see is the Draft Bowl. And Frank Janisch, of course, going to have some opinions about that. But if you don't know what it is, it's going to be Kaiser, whom we've never seen compete. I think he's just been a mouthpiece. But I talked to Kaiser at a recent Schmoedown taping, and this guy's knowledgeable. He knows his movies, he knows his stuff, and he's a great manager. Still has a strong case for Manager of the Year, but we're going to see the three of them compete in a draft bowl, presumably having something to do with the draft coming up in next season for the nuke, meaning managers are now going to have teams of guys and gals, of competitors, and this obviously will give you some sort of advantage into the draft bowl. So I think that right now, should I do this or should I wait? Because there's so many things to discuss. And Frank Janisch, I know he did stuff. But I guess what I want to talk about first is this. And then I'm going to throw it to Frank. We saw cutscenes, several interesting cutscenes. We saw Robert Meyer Burnett have one with Mike Kalinowski. We saw Coy Jandreau and Mr. HARLOFF, also Fife Dagnino. We saw HARLOFF and Fife, but a lot of these scenes are revolving the recruitment of players. We saw Robert Meyer Burnett try to persuade Mike Kalinowski to join his team, as we saw with Kaiser trying to get Ethan Irwin, and you know, there's been a lot of gamesmanship going about because everyone wants to talk up their players or talk up the players in order to get them to be more receptive to their potential drafting by those players. See, sometimes in the NBA or NFL or even Major League Baseball, you have to make sure there's a personality fit. And you have to make sure that whomever you do draft wants to play with you. Because here's the thing. Think of this Andre Iguodala situation that's been going on with the Memphis Grizzlies. Andre Iguodala, great six man of the year. He was the finals MVP for the Golden State Warriors. Then when they want to make cap room for D'Angelo Russell. They trade him away to the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, Iguodala's got a $20 million contract, but he doesn't want to play for the Memphis Grizzlies. So that's not a situation that you want to have with a player. You do not want to trade for a player or draft a player that does not have any interest in playing with you, so they ask for a trade. But here's the interesting thing with that. If that is the case, and if a player doesn't want to play with you, but you draft him anyway, well, now you have what we like to call a trade piece. And you can start shopping that potential player. So say, I don't know, let's say Roxy Stryer drafts Paulo Yama. And the two of them, they don't really want to play a whole season together. She doesn't really want him on the team. He doesn't really want to be on the team. He'd rather be on a team with Kaiser. Once again, sorry if you hear these airplanes in the background. They're so loud. He wants to be on a team with Kaiser, not Roxy. Well, now Roxy can use her draft pick of Paulo Yama, or this is just an example, or someone like that, in order to trade for someone else she does like. Say Mark Andreyko is taken on another team. Well, now maybe she can trade for that. She could trade for Dan. She could try to maneuver. So this is a part of the gamesmanship of the league. So that's something that can happen in a trade scenario or a draft scenario where you get someone who doesn't want to play for you. But trying to win these top-tier players over, like a Robert Meyer Burnett did to Mike Kalinowski, this is a good move. This is a really good move. So I'm going to throw it to Frank Janisch. Frank Janisch is going to break down these scenes a little bit more. He's also going to talk about the draft bowl, and then we're going to be right back here, and I'm going to talk about the matches that we saw this week.
What's going on, everyone? Kind of a weird episode this week, but we still want to get our thoughts out there on everything that went down. And, two huge matches, pretty much wrapping up the tournament here with the Brendan Meyer, Ben Bateman match and the Bibbiani Rocha match. But before I get into any of those matches, we had some cutscenes that I thought were pretty interesting that are kind of laying the groundwork in a sense for what might happen between players and managers next season, which I think is super interesting. We had an interesting interaction between Kalinowski and Robert Meyer Burnett. Burnett pretty much going up to, the man of the hour right now, especially for Inner Geekdom and obviously teams. But, Robert Meyer Burnett kind of, says, hey, from one champ to another, which I thought was kind of funny because Kalinowski pokes fun at it, saying, yeah, I guess you technically were. And it's true, Robert Meyer Burnett was the first Inner Geekdom champion. But, the whole meaning of this interaction for Robert Meyer Burnett was the fact that he's trying to somehow entice Mike to say, look, hey, it's okay to come over to the family, leave corruption behind, which is a very interesting move that I don't know how Robert Meyer Burnett thought it was going to go any other way than it did. But nonetheless, that was something that happened. That's starting off the Bibbiani Rocha match. So I'm going to jump to the end of that one and talk about the other scene that pertains to managers, and that was Christian Harloff talking to Emma Fife. Now, Emma Fife was the team commissioner, the Inner Geekdom commissioner, and Sam Levine, he was commissioner of the Singles League. Now, we haven't really seen much of Sam. We haven't seen much of Emma in their commissioning roles because of when Robert Meyer Burnett was, taking hold of the league. And also, we didn't really see much of Sam do anything really with the singles commissionership. We saw a lot of action from Emma, but Harloff in this scene cites Emma's post-match interview with Chance, which I thought was pretty interesting, to say the least. But he kind of cites that, Emma is a little bit unbiased and it was kind of uncalled for, that she's kind of throwing her power around, and Christian couldn't have that anymore, so he removed her starting next season as commissioner of teams and Inner Geekdom. And he goes, you know what? But it's not the end of the road for you. I want you back as a manager. Let's bring back the Fife Club. You're really good as a manager. She's one of the best managers we've ever seen, that's for sure. She had a special run with the Shirewolves and Mark and Draco. Just an incredible year. It'd be interesting to see if Emma can do that again, replicate that success with different players, presumably. I mean, only Andraco is the only one that's going to be out there. And if all things go the way that Roxy and Snyder and Draco are planning on, the odd couple of Draco and Snyder will be tied together. They could be a top 5 protected team. They'll definitely still end up in the top 10, and then when 6 through 10, that's up to the manager's discretion whether or not you want to keep that team together. So if Emma did pull the trigger on, or has the opportunity to draft Draco, would she take Jeff Snyder along with him? It'll be interesting to see that dynamic, especially with, how is Draco going to react? He spent a lot of time now with Roxy, obviously had a good run with Emma as his manager. So he did get to a title shot in singles, ultimately losing to Bibbiani, but he did have some good success with Emma, has nothing but great things to say about Emma. So now with Emma being available back in the league as a manager, and with his current manager, Roxy, it'll be interesting to see where his allegiances lie, and it'll be interesting to see if we see any influence from former members Clark Wolf or Rachel Cushing show up. Now, we've heard that they're not necessarily going to be complete strangers. That those two, their presence will be felt at the desk at the very least. So does that mean it could bleed over into a little more scene time? Who knows? But it'll be interesting to see if that dynamic develops as the year winds down and maybe into start of next year. Who knows what happens there? So I thought those are two very interesting, or these two scenes with Robert Meyer Burnett and Kalinowski, Harloff and Emma Fife. Oh, also, Harloff or Emma asked Harloff that Sam also be removed then as commissioner because he wasn't doing jack squat. Which, I mean, look, it's true from our point of view. It doesn't look like he's doing a whole lot. And I know Emma had earlier in the year had some beef with Sam in terms of not pulling his weight. So Christian says, yeah, sure, he's gone too. So those were interesting scenes to have, because we're starting to get the ball rolling in terms of managers. We've already had, we know Robert Meyer Burnett, Dagnino. We've seen Jay Washington talk to Kevin Smets. Now we got Emma here. She's getting thrown back into the mix, thrown to the fold. And then let's talk about the other scenes that that were after the Rocha Bibbiani match, and Bateman and Meyer match. Right before that, we had a scene between Christian again and Coy Jandrew. And at first, Harloff's like, sure, we'll put you back in the league. And Coy goes, actually, I think my calling really is managing. I want to manage next year. So it looks like he's going to be another manager next year, which is going to be great. I was excited to hear this, because I thought he has very good showmanship, and I think his enthusiasm will benefit certain players in this league that could use someone like Jandrew to I almost called him Chandrew and Jandrew. Anyway, it's Coy Jandrew. Coy. There'll be certain players out there that can benefit from Coy's enthusiasm and be their cheerleader as well as their manager, obviously. And it'll be fun to see him in the league in a more consistent manner, I hope, next year. So I'm really excited that Coy is going to be a manager next year. Who he picks is going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how he actually views the Schmoedown, how in tune he might be in terms of strategy, and who he deems, what players he deems as those worthy, and who he favors. So that's gonna be interesting to find out. But at the end of that match, the post-credit scene, we had another scene with Tom Dagnino and Emma Fife once again. And Dagnino, hey, look, Emma's back, and Emma's telling Dagnino, I was once manager of the year, you better watch out for your boys, because I just might go ahead and swoop Merle. And obviously Dagnino and the Horsemen have been through a lot this year, some ups and downs, and right now they're kind of on the upswing with Bateman's run, and we'll see what happens with Founding Fathers down in Orlando. So it's an interesting time for Dagnino, because he's got to kind of refine himself what's gonna happen with him next year in terms of drafting new players, forming new relationships, also at the same time battling old rivals like Emma Fife and Robert Meyer Burnett. So it's going to be interesting to see that dynamic again between Emma Fife and Dagnino on a managerial level. Obviously, there's been some back and forth in terms of commissionership to manager between Emma and Dagnino, but now that they're kind of basically on equal levels here. It's going to be interesting to see how both of them navigate one another going into next year. And look, it's all going to start really with that draft bowl down in Orlando. You have Emma Fyffe, Dagnino, and Kaiser all going at it. And getting right into that bit of news I found interesting was that, yeah, because of Bateman, his back issues make him unavailable to travel. So what ended up happening was we were having Dagnino, Emma, and Kaiser have a triple threat match, and it's not just a, hey, go play the match. There's a actual reward for winning. And I thought, well, how are you going to do a reward for 3 managers when you're supposed to have another 7 that are going to be involved next year? It doesn't really seem fair. But when I heard the reward and how it's contained to just these 3 players, or managers rather, I thought, well, that makes a little bit more sense. It's more fair because you can't have all 10. You're not going to have all 10 managers up on the desk. You're not going to have a little mini tournament of managers for who gets what pick in what order and all that stuff. But what's going to happen here is whoever wins this match between the 3 of them, they will have the option, the ability to swap out one of their picks for another pick of their choosing, but it can only be from the other 2 players they play against. So if Emma won, then come draft time, if she had like pick number 4 in the draft and Kaiser had pick number 2, she can go over to Kaiser and say, you're going to have my number 4, I'm taking your 2. So there's a lot, I think, that's going to make the draft interesting with this little wrinkle in it, because Emma can go ahead and ruin, or whoever wins can ruin another manager's plans for drafting a certain player. Definitely going to throw a wrench in some plans for the likes of Dagnino and Kaiser and Emma. Whoever wins is definitely going to, have somewhat. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out at the draft, and how does that influence a specific manager to draft. Do they tip their hand? I want to draft this player, and then Emma or Dagnino or Kaiser might go in and, well, to kind of get on their skin, I'm going to go ahead and swipe that pick because I need it because they're ahead of me, so I'm going to take that one. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out in the draft, and even if that whole thing will be used, because what if Emma, well, I think that was the other thing actually I got cleared up with Christian was, let's say Emma has, because it's a snake draft, so let's say Emma has the higher draft pick in a previous round, whether it's 1, 2, 3, whatever the case may be. The next round, she will be after them if she had a higher pick to start off with, okay? So let's say if she was pick number 3, she's, it goes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then it comes back down 11, 12, 13, 14, whatever. She'll be, 17, I think. But anywho, Kaiser and hypothetically, Kaiser and Dagnino would be ahead of her now, so she can go ahead and then swap. If it was the second round, she could take her later second round and swap for whoever's earlier second round pick. So it's going to be interesting to see and a lot of fun to watch what comes of that. And you just know that if Emma does win the thing, I can only imagine kind of like the paranoia on Dagnino's face. So that'll be a lot of fun. But those things were fun, but what was even more fun were these matches. Holy crap. I was really excited for both of these semifinals. The first one that we did see, right, was Bibbiani versus Rocha. This is somewhat of the third one between them. Obviously, they had a title match against each other in which Rocha defeated Bibbs. And then they met earlier this year in a triple threat match in which Ethan Irwin was involved, but Bibbiani was victorious. So it's kind of 1-1 between Rocha and Bibbs at this point, but this one would settle it. And Bibbs has been on a run like no other. It is phenomenal what he's been doing since the free for all. I mean, look, he had an earlier title shot against Merle that didn't go his way, but free for all and his singles tournament run, and he had a very good debut match with Shazam with Brendan Meyer. What will happen in the team tournaments? I think big things, just given the way both of them have been playing, especially Bibbs. And I had said last week, Rocha has a shot at this if he can keep pace with Bibbs in that first round, because Bibbs is just lights out first round player. If you need any more evidence of that, just look at this year's free-for-all. Look at last year's free-for-all. I mean, the guy is insane when it comes to first-round questions, and it was no different here. He ended up just missing one question, and Rocha just missed two. So Rocha, in my eyes, did exactly what he needed to do in order to keep pace with someone like Bibbiani, who could jump out to a big lead, because Rocha is prone to having those 5-point first rounds. And if Bibbs ends up going 8 for 8 and maybe misses the bonus, because he does miss the bonus quite often when he goes 8 for 8. So let's say he's up 8 to 5. A 3-point deficit is pretty heavy to come back from, especially with a guy like Bibbs. And look, sure, anything can happen in the second round. We saw that with Rocha Kalinowski, where Rocha was able to take advantage of just a severe weakness of Kalinowski. Now, I'd like to think, and I think many others would agree, that Bibbiani is just a much more well-rounded player than Kalinowski, especially when it comes to classics. That's for sure. That's not a category that Bibbs would shy away from. And really, there's not a whole lot of categories on that wheel that Bibbs shies away from. So going into that second round with just a 1-point lead, Bibbs defers to Rocha, and Rocha ends up with Clint Eastwood, and opts not to spin again. I think I like the strategy on this part of Rocha, because I think he recognizes that if he spins opponent's choice, he's just putting more power into Bibbs' hands. And Clint Eastwood's not a bad category. The guy does westerns. He's done a lot of different things that I think fall within Rocha's purview. And it showed here. He went 4 of 4, went to multiple choice just twice here, and again, answering both of those correct. So he got a total of 6 points, 6 out of 8, which is pretty good here in this situation. Definitely going first. You're not sure what Bibbs is going to do, because deferring like this gives Bibbs some more advantage. He knows the lay of the land. So Rocha, fortunate to go just 2 for 2 for multiple choice. The other two were straight up for 2 points. And that's a solid showing. I mean, 12 points through 2 rounds is really, what you're looking for, especially at this stage of a tournament, at the very least. But you're going up against a guy like Bibbiani, who's just been on an absolute tear and has faced tough competition to get to this point. So when Bibbs goes, he ends up spinning opponent's choice. Now you're thinking, well, this could really favor Rocha, right? Because last match for Rocha, when Kalinowski spun, he ended up at classics, and it wasn't a favorable spin, right? Bibbiani landing on opponent's choice, Rocha can kind of take control and throw something at Bibbs that he feels he might not be good at. But the problem is, with Bibbiani, there's not a whole lot he's not good at. So, you can go ahead and look at that wheel again and say, well, I saw some people say, well, why didn't Rocha give him westerns? It's one of those things. I think without talking to Bibbs or Rocha or anyone on this, I think Rocha might have thought, well, maybe Bibbs was game planning for westerns. Maybe he's brushed up on westerns more. I mean, he got a first round western question correct. Yeah, it's a first round question, but got it right. Maybe Rocha was thinking maybe Rocha's a little bit more up and up on the westerns. So I'm going to give him Sly and Arnie, and that kind of, Sly and Arnie, that category, while westerns is more of a broad, but also kind of more narrow-focused in a sense. Sly and Arnie, you're dealing with 2 different actors, 2 different filmographies, right? So maybe that's helpful, but Bibbs is Bibbs, and he rifles off the first 3 for 6 points right off the bat. And, even Rocha, had to give him props for that, because it was an impressive run. Goes multiple choice, and the last one nails it. So Bibbs also goes 4 for 4, but 1 point better than Rocha's effort. So 7-6 in favor of Bibbiani for this round, which gives him a total of 14 points to Rocha's 12. A 2-point lead heading into that final round is probably one of the better case scenarios Rocha could have asked for, because things could have, he could have had a first round that wasn't great like he had, and Rocha would be down by 4 and would have to answer a 2 and a 3 back to back. But that wasn't the case. If you're going to be down in this situation, which, look, I thought was a big possibility, just because, again, Bibbiani is playing at a clip that he hasn't played at previously. I think he's been close, but he's never played this good. He's never been relaxed like this. He's never been in a groove like we've seen, which is scary stuff. But Rocha, he ends up getting his 2-pointer, so then it goes back to Bibbs. He gets his 2-pointer, goes back to Rocha. He answers his 3-pointer, and now Bibbs misses his 3-pointer. The Denzel Washington question, the 2 guns, right? Huge miss. And this is a golden opportunity. I mean, this is what you needed to happen if you were Rocha. And so Bibbs has to answer his 5-pointer. And look, Bibbs nails it like a pro, wastes no time, no effort in giving the answer. And it goes right back to John Rocha for his 5-pointer to win the game. This is the exact scenario that you dream about, that you need to win these types of matches. You don't win many of these matches by watching while watching the player across from you, fail at their questions. Usually you have to do some of the work, right? Certainly Bibbs has had to do the work, and this had to be just a tough loss for Rocha. I mean, it was the Quentin Tarantino cigarette brand, and it's just one of those things. It's interesting, too, because I think Rocha sort of has a history with Quentin Tarantino in terms of not taking that category, especially when it comes to top 10 back in the day. Not so much recently could you point towards it, but there was like a stretch there. It wasn't even just top 10. I think it was like a league-wide thing for a little bit where no one was really trying to take Quentin Tarantino, which was always kind of weird because it's, the guy has only made like 8-9 films, right? There's not a whole lot, and he, wrote a couple others, right? And so there's not a whole lot there. Nonetheless, he gets Quentin Tarantino here for 5 points and, couldn't pull it out. And Bibbs ends up winning 21-17. Bibbs just misses 2 questions in this match. He's 13 of 15. That's an 87% accuracy rate, while John, 12 of 15, an accuracy rate of 80%. John's been playing really, really solid this whole year, and it was no different here, except he went up against Bibbiani, who, like I said, is on a hell of a roll. He's on a hell of a run, and 80% accuracy rate wasn't going to cut it today or that day against Bibbiani, and it was a great match. It was a great match, and I look forward. This is a great showing from Rocha because now this is going to bleed over to Orlando, and that's very exciting to know that Rocha is playing really well, and we all know Merle. He's the bona fide GOAT of at least the singles division. If you want to say overall GOAT, I'm not going to fight you on it, but I think people know where I stand on that, and I would hope. I have respect for, if you want to call Merle the GOAT, you want to call Rachel the GOAT, I understand. There's arguments to be made. Nonetheless, the current GOAT competing is Merle, and Rocha is playing some of his best game ever right now. And to go into Orlando with that kind of momentum, that kind of confidence against a hot team in corruption like Kalinowski, who's been playing pretty great, and Rocha did beat him, so he's got that. But Chance, very sneaky good. He's a great first-round player, right up there with Bibbs in terms of the best first-round players we have in the game, along with, I would say, probably Ethan Irwin as well, and Merle. Some of the all-time great numbers up there for them. So Rocha's got that going for him. Merle, has got to feel pretty good at how Rocha's playing. Orlando's going to be crazy, and you're probably you might have already seen that match go down already by the time you're listening to this or watching this. So I hope it was a good match. I hope so. Bibbs, though, he advances to the final, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I just like the fact that he's having a lot of fun this year. And a real quick note: his entrance for this one was a bunch of bees. Not much to talk about, but it was a bunch of bees. The one week I remember to talk about his entrance, it's just a bunch of bees. So thanks a lot, Bibbs. Thanks a lot, Bibbs. That second match now of the week between Bateman and Meyer, the kid, or as Brad would call him, the tenderoni. I was really excited for this match because Ben is a gamer. He's a gamer through and through. And what I mean by that is he looks at the game and he looks at how to make the game work in his favor. He looks at the game in a different way than most players do. Now, just from my brief talks with Brendan Meyer about how he views the game, he's on that similar path. He's finding out. He's a rookie this year, so he's not going to have the knowledge of the game the way Ben does. But Brendan Meyer's been playing really good this entire year. You can even go back to his first match against Paul Oyama. Not a horrible effort, but he followed that up with the free-for-all run that he had. It was like 11 rounds in free-for-all. Great accuracy rate as well, so he wasn't just skating by a lot of the time. He was actually putting up really good numbers. And then he went on a three-win win streak, and that got him to the semifinal here against Ben. So he's been playing really good. Very solid first-round player he's been showing as of late. So I was really excited for this match because I know Ben was going to go after the kid in any possible way. And what's interesting, when we get to this match and they're both at the desk, Ben, first we should note he's got some back issues and he's walking in on a golf club as a cane, so he's not feeling his best. But he came out there and he was ready to play. He was determined and focused to make this happen, to get this win from a guy, or a kid who's been playing really well. And Ben prepared for this guy. And as soon as they were both at the table, you hear Bateman kind of yapping a little bit at Brendan, And I know Brendan in his post-match said that nothing really got underneath his skin or got inside his head. And I kind of believe him, actually. But to me, when I saw Ben kind of yap a little bit, kind of, take some little tiny jabs at Brendan Meyer, I thought he knows Brendan Meyer is legit. He's taking him seriously. And I saw that as a tremendous sign of respect on Ben's part, because if he's willing to kind of engage in those antics to kind of get some strategic or, some game advantage, whichever way possible, mental games, I thought he's definitely taking Brendan Meyer serious, so that was a lot of fun to watch, actually, because we haven't really seen that from Ben a whole lot, aside from, you could say the Andrew Guy match, which kind of a different set of circumstances, with not as much at stake, besides respect and integrity and honor and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, first round, though, things got out of hand real quick. Ben has a back-to-back perfect first round, 9 of 9 against Paul Preston, and then 9 of 9 here against Brendan Meyer. Brendan could only muster up 5 points, much like I think he had 5 points in his debut match against Paul, 5 or 6 at least. So not a good showing. 4-point deficit. We've seen people can come back from that. It has happened a few times this year. I talked about it a couple weeks ago. But it was just, one of those days, and you could see on Brendan's face, like, man, this one's just not going to break my way. And it continued that way because Ben obviously defers. That's his move. And Brendan Meyer ends up spinning away from action adventure, lands on opponents, and Ben Bateman hands him James Bond. Normally, we don't see Bond on the wheel unless Mike Kalinowski's at the desk, right? Unless he's in the match. Clearly, Ben found something that he said, look, if I get the opportunity to hand Brendan Meyer James Bond, I'm going to do it because that could win me the game. And what ended up happening? Brendan Meyer went 1 of 4 for just 1 point. 1 point. And while James Bond is not an incredible strength for Ben Bateman, he still managed to swipe 2 points off of 3 possible steal opportunities. So it was one of those game moves that I think Ben Bateman was hoping the stars would align for this, because this is something you obviously have to plan for. This was definitely a strategic move, because who else puts Bond on the wheel aside from Kalinowski? No one does. So I just, you could just, and then you just felt it with the kid up there, just, it ain't gonna happen, and he went to multiple choice. He took a swing on one of them. It just, it didn't happen. And Ben, he ends up spinning 2010s, and he goes 4 for 4 for the full 8 points, and in doing so, knocks out the kid, Brendan Meyer, second round to advance to the tournament final against William Bibbiani, Brendan Meyer's partner of Shazam, by a score of 19-6. Ben Bateman missed just one question this match. That means he's missed actually a total of 3 questions the entire tournament run. In 3 matches, Ben Bateman has missed 3 questions. And you know who else has only missed 3 questions this entire tournament run? William the Beast Bibbiani. 2 guys in the finals for this tournament. Both have only missed 3 questions each. Like, what is going on here? We're seeing superb play from both of these players. One that we always felt in Bibbiani that from the moment he entered the league, KRISTIAN touted him as a champion, a future champion. Ben Bateman came into this league with Andrew Guy, and they brought the antics, they brought the bad boy image, they brought, a swagger and a cockiness to this league that we had never seen before. And they were like decent, okay players. Bateman has transformed himself into one of the premier players across 2 divisions. And he did it and started to solidify that for sure in a match in which he wasn't physically 100%. And that's got to mess with you mentally. That's very draining. It has to be very draining to go through the day, to go through your whole routine, to get to the studio, to prep, all of that. Meanwhile, you're dealing with something that's extremely painful. It is up there with like the Michael Jordan flu game, for real. What Ben did in this match, missing just one question on a steal, so it wasn't technically like a question that was set for him, but nonetheless, it is a question that was asked, and he did get it wrong, so I have to count it stat-wise as a miss. So he's 15 of 16 in this match, and Ben Bateman's performance here, the mental fortitude, the ability to keep his mind in the game when he could have just checked out and said, hey, my back, it's bothering me that much. But he somehow found it in him to go 9 for 9 in the first round, 4 for 4 in the second round, and go 2 of 3 on steal opportunities for a knockout win against a rookie sensation, really, other than, there's been a few rookie sensations. Look at Paul Yama, Kevin Smets, Brendan Meyer. I think, phenomenal, right? I think those are probably like the 3 standout. And then, of course, there's Chandru and Hannah, Brendan Hanna, and David Del Rio, Liz Shannon Miller. Obviously, very good. I mean, you think you look at, even Video Drew, just personality-wise. But Brendan Meyer is definitely one of those notable rookies this year that has definitely made an impact. Paul Preston, how could I forget Paul Preston? Unbelievable stuff this year as well. But Brendan Meyer, he's in that upper echelon of this incoming rookie class, which says a lot about him and his play this year. And Ben Bateman was able to squash that, an up-and-coming rookie and Brendan Meyer. And, it's a hell of a performance from Ben Bateman. Sure, Brendan Meyer could have wanted things to go differently. At least a better first round, you would think. If you get James Bond like that in the second round, there's nothing much you can do. But I think you would have trouble sitting with a first round performance like that, because those are supposed to be the general questions. Those are supposed to be the ones, that's supposed to be the round you get 7 points, 6, 7, probably 8 points, which he's done before. So that's got to be disappointing. But Bond's Bond for him, and that's one of those things where it ended up biting him in the end. And he said, hey, look, it's not like I got questions wrong on movies that I should have gotten answers right. He talks about the Annabelle creation one he should have got right. But all the other ones, he's just like, I haven't seen them. And that speaks to his age. I think he's like 24 or something like that. So, Billy Madison's on his list. And it's crazy, right, to a lot of us that he hasn't seen Billy Madison, but there are people out there like that who are really good at this game and who have not seen Billy Madison. And I think Brendan Meyer, he's got a bright future ahead of him in singles, but I'm excited for his team's run. Like I said, him and Bibbs, they've just been on a roll. Both got to the semifinals of the singles tournament. What does that mean for a team run? Who knows? Same thing can be said for Ben. He's been on an incredible run in singles. What does that mean for the teams? Him and Riley. They won that tournament last year. The year before, Ben was in the final with team action with Andrew Guy and lost to Above the Line with Sam Levine and Drew McWeeny. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now, and we have about a month to go before we get everything ironed out before Spectacular. This team tournament's going to be crazy. I cannot wait to see it all go down, and I'm very excited. Hell of a tournament so far. We'll see the conclusion of this tournament at Spectacular on December 7th. Should be a hell of a day. 5 matches, all 5 rounders. Oof, that's gonna be something else. But you know what? I think that's gonna do it here for my side of things, my side of the recap for the week that was in the Schmoedown. And here's to the rest of the year, and it's ending soon, but it's gonna be a lot of fun.
So there were some thoughts there from Frank Janisch. Sorry my microphone wasn't working prior. I just got a new computer. I'm not exactly sure what was going on there. But I want to give my brief thoughts regarding the matches with Bibbiani and John Rocha, and then with, and then Ben Bateman and the kid. I've been fighting off a cold, so the boat's a little bit under the weather. Overall, I thought that the Bibbiani-John Rocha match was compelling to watch. I really enjoyed that, and I think that Kristian Harloff said something that many people may have not considered prior to that match, but William the Beast Bibbiani is having a phenomenal year. Sure, he hasn't won a championship as of yet, but he has the opportunity to. He has the opportunity to really win 2 championships by the year's end, and even with his free-for-all performance, back-to-back MVP years for him, Bibbiani is making a strong case for Player of the Year. Again, excuse the airplanes. So when I look at him versus John Rocha, Rocha's had a good year as well. I mean, I think the Mike Kalinowski win, maybe his biggest win up into that point in the season. I think that gave him a lot of confidence going into this match with William Bibbiani. But I've said it before, a lot of times you trade victories. When you see the same people over and over again, you're going to trade victories. And this time it was William Bibbiani's time to go out there and defeat John Rocha. I think that Bibbs is my pick to go off and win everything. I think that Bibbiani and the kid will win the teams tournament. I think that Bibbiani will win the Ultimate Schmoedown tournament and go on later that evening to defeat, presumably later that evening, to defeat Paul Oyama. I'm assuming since it's taking place at the Spectacular, we're also going to see the championship match later that evening. Logic, brother. So I think that Bibbiani he's been playing so lights out. He's in the zone. He's ready to go out there and prove everybody wrong, prove that his title win from a couple years ago wasn't a fluke. Because if you remember, a lot of people said, he didn't really beat Sam Levine because Sam retired and Sam was the champion. He beat Mark Andreyko. That was supposed to be a number 1 contenders match. And I don't really put a lot of stock into that theory. I think that you beat whoever is in front of you. I did the same thing with the Shire Wolves. Got a lot of that hate for, Above the Line. And I just think that you beat who's ever in front of you. And Bibbiani did that to win the championship. And right now he's doing that in this tournament. He's beating who's ever in front of him. And that's why I think that William the Beast Bibbiani goes out there and he captures the singles championship. And I think that he and the kid win the team tournament. Whether they win the team championships or not, that's up for debate, but I definitely think that he wins singles, he wins the title, and he will win the teams tournament. And maybe he's Bibby 3 belts, or Bibby 2 belts, rather. 2 championships. Bibby 2 championships. Hashtag. So we'll have to see what happens with William Bibbiani, and then Ben Bateman and Brendan the Kid Meyer. I mean, the fine, young, tenderoni. I think that that the thing that happened with Brendan Meyer in that match in particular was the fact that he just got questions he didn't know. I mean, the Happy Gilmore question was one amongst others. He just didn't know. And that first round set him back so far against a guy like Ben Bateman, who if you make a mistake against Ben Bateman, he's like a sniper. He is going to find you, and he is going to take you out. And Ben had a lot of smack talk leading into this match. He had a lot of smack talk during this match, and he was in a lot of pain throughout the duration, but he pulled out for victory, and I said that his window was closing. His championship window was closing, and we're right here. I think this has been Bateman's final opportunity to go out there and prove everybody wrong and prove to everybody that he is exactly what he has always said that he is, a champion in this league. Wears the belts. I think that Ben Bateman, if he goes out there and beats William Bibbiani, he has a shot of beating Paul Oyama. I still think that Bibbs has a better chance of beating Paul Oyama than Ben Bateman does. And the reason I say that is we just see how deadly Bibbs is recently. Now, Ben Bateman also has had, back-to-back games with perfect first rounds, and that's going to do you a lot of good, especially against somebody like a Paul Oyama. Paul Oyama could go out there and swing and miss on his round 3 questions, and if you have the advantage after getting a perfect round in round 1, man, you're in pretty good shape. But for Ben and for Bibbs, I think that I just see Bibbiani winning it. Now, my question is, what will also depend on it is it going to be a 3-round or a 5-round match? I don't remember if that's been announced yet. If it has, forgive me. But if it's a 5-round match, it's a little tighter. It's a little bit tighter. I think that there's a little bit more room for error for Bibbiani, because we've seen him in like third rounds not do so well. I mean, historically, not do so well in third rounds. And I think that exposing him to a 5-round structure might give Bateman a better chance of coming back if he does find himself, if he falls behind in the count, to use a baseball reference, earlier in the match, which against Bibbiani people tend to do because he is just a round 1 machine. Can Ben keep up his run of the perfect rounds? I don't know. I mean, we will see. I just for some reason, Bibbiani feels right to me. That sounded a little weird, but he does. He feels right. So I'm going Bibbs. As far as the Draft Bowl and the team's championship match going on this weekend, here are my quick thoughts. Emma Fyffe won the Manager Bowl at Spectacular 2017. She won the Commissioner Bowl at Spectacular 2018. And I have a feeling that Emma Fyffe is going to win the Draft Bowl coming this Saturday, October the 19th in Orlando. But we'll have to see and find out. I just think that Emma Fyffe is probably the more well-rounded player. We haven't seen a lot of Kaiser, so he could have that deep knowledge like I talked about before. But and who the hell knows? I mean, if Dagnino wins, it's always a good time. But I think that it's going to be a very entertaining match filled with a lot of trash talk. But I think that Emma Fyffe's going to be the one who has her eye on the ball and is going to knock it out of the park. Let's go to the main event. Let's go to the team championship match. It's rough, man. Because Chance and Mike, they did win against the Shire Wolves. Now, you could say, well, the Shire Wolves knew it was their last match anyway, so, and I know that, I mean, they don't say this, but I'm saying you could make the assumption, or you could say that, hey, you know, since they were competing in their last match, maybe that they're not as focused or as locked in as they had been in prior matches, leading to Mike and Chance getting the victory. Remember, it did come down to the last question, and Chance almost had a really big screw up there. And then you had the Founding Fathers, who, when we were in Houston here and they beat Double Toasted, it was a knockout. But, you know, this is more of a matchup for them than Double Toasted. No disrespect to those guys. Something tells me, Founding Fathers, something tells me that John Rocha has Mike's ticket. And that the knowledge that Chance does possess Dan possesses more. I mean, because Chance is a really knowledgeable guy, and he made my prediction come true of him being a winner or a champion by the end of the season, and he already made that come true. So the boat is amazing. But I think that John has Mike's number, and then Dan out knowledges Chance. So I hate to go against Mike again because he proved me wrong in that Janine match. But I'm going with the Founding Fathers to walk out of Orlando, the team champions. So those are my predictions. And this is the episode. This is all you get. It's good. It's real good. Some people might even say it's perfect, or maybe Booker T would say that. But I am the boat. You can follow me on all social media at Brad Gilmore. Follow Frank at FrankieJ29, and our wonderful producer Chris Clark at Chris Clark 8788. Those numbers mean nothing. Until next week when we are all together in the same room, my name is Brad Gilmore for Frank Janisch and Chris Clark. We will see you next week on the Schmoedown Rundown. Bro.